Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with allthingsbbq.com, and this is Grilled Skirt Steak and Peaches. So I was walking through the store the other day and I saw this skirt steak sitting in the meat counter, and I thought, man, that's something we haven't done in a while. I don't think we've even featured it on the channel before. So I went ahead and developed a recipe pretty quickly. This is something that's really simple, but really delicious and a great meat for summertime, a really great recipe for summertime. So we're gonna be grilling this skirt steak today with some barbecue flavors. We're gonna get some chili into it with marinade, which is great because skirt is kind of known sort of like flank, where it's a bit of a tougher cut. The muscles are definitely much different than a flank steak, but it's known for being a little bit chewy. So we're gonna treat it a couple different ways. We're going to use a marinade to kind of break down some of that toughness. It's also gonna add a nice chili flavor to it. We'll get a barbecue rub on it. We'll glaze it with a bit of barbecue sauce in the end, and then we'll slice it just right so that it's got this really great mouthfeel. And with all of that salty and spicy flavor going on in the steak, we're gonna complement that with some grilled peaches just to add a little bit of freshness and a little bit of sweetness. All right, so here we have our skirt steaks. I've got a couple of them. They're about a pound each. If you haven't seen one of these before, they're this very long, very thin piece of meat, right? Got some good fat running through it though, which is great. That adds some flavor to it. And as you can see, these strands are quite a bit thicker than like on a flank steak. Now the thing about this is you see all the muscle fibers running in this direction, which means as we slice this in the end, we're gonna have to go across. So we'll probably cut this down into 2 or 3 pieces before we serve it. And the first thing we're gonna do is get this in our marinade though. So we'll start by putting the skirt steak into our briner bucket, and then we'll get some Sweetwater Spice Ancho Chipotle brisket bath in there. So we're gonna start by adding 5 cups of water to the bucket, and then we'll add to that 1 cup of our brine bath. So 5 to 1 on that, which leaves you about half a jar of this stuff left over for another project. And then I'll just get in there and mix it up really well. And we'll let this soak, probably about 45 minutes to an hour. And I'll throw that back in the fridge. So during this hour that we're waiting on the skirt steak to marinate, we're going to also prep the rest of our ingredients, which is really simple today. We've just got some green onions. We're actually gonna throw those on the grill whole. And then we've got some peaches, and all we're gonna do to those is halve them and pit them. We'll throw those on the grill as well. Now speaking of the grill, today we're cooking over charcoal on the Yoder Smoker's flat top. This is the 24 by 48 inch. So the other thing that's happening right now is our coals are getting nice and hot. So we'll simply just rock the knife around the peach and pull that pit out of there. Ended up giving the skirt steaks a full hour in our brine marinade mixture. We're using a little bit of salt and a little bit of acid to break this down today. We're gonna pull these out of the briner. Get it on a paper towel first to start soaking up some of that excess moisture on the surface, but we're not gonna get rid of all of it because that's actually gonna help bind our rub to the meat as well. Now these you could break down into smaller pieces if you want to, just to make them more manageable. We've got plenty of space on the grill, so we're gonna leave them just the way they are. But one thing that we are gonna do before we get into the seasoning is I'm just gonna score the surface of this. There's a couple reasons that you can do this to really help improve the end product. One thing it does is it makes it look really nice. It's just a really cool design to have a nice hatch pattern on there. The other thing it does is it allows you to create a little more texture on the surface here. So now as this starts to cook over the charcoal, you've now got all these nooks and crannies that can pick up that extra char. So you're creating extra texture by adding these score marks. Now you could do this on one side, just your presentation side, or both sides. Either way is fine. As you can see, this is a pretty thin piece of meat, so this is gonna be a quick process. Now since we're going for kind of a barbecue flavor profile today, we're gonna be using the Plowboys Barbecue Bovine Bold. This is the same kind of stuff I like to use on my briskets. But the thing you have to think about here is you've got a really thin piece of meat this time versus a big piece of brisket. So go a little lighter on the seasoning. You don't want to overpower everything and make it too salty. so our coals are super hot. We're gonna go right over direct heat here. Yeah, good sizzle right off the bat. If you're cooking on a different type of grill, say a pellet grill, gas grill, something like that, you just want to make sure that you're leaving the lid open because you don't want to trap heat in there and overcook these before they get browned. And you're running it super hot, so 500 plus degrees Fahrenheit. So we're just looking to get a little bit of color on the surface of the peach. We don't want to break it down completely. We want to have some structure still when it's done. So just a little bit of char, and I'm going to pull that one off. Same with that one. If it starts to look like it's getting mushy, go ahead and take it off. Oh, look at that. Now you see how our score marks have just given us that much more surface area to really char that up and give it some nice texture. Use just a little bit more on that side. Green onions take no time at all to get a little bit of char on them. Now that our fruit's off, we can kind of use that space to get some char. Yeah. Get some nice hot coals in a couple of spots. Now checking the temp on these is kind of tricky because it's so thin. You have to make sure that your pin is in the dead center. You go too far, it looks like you're way over, but you'll find that you still have a pink ring in the center. So we're getting to about 130 on these, which is right where I want to pull them off. And they've got some great color on them. So I think we can call this good. Yeah. Now to finish this off, while the surface of the meat is super hot, we're just gonna glaze it with a little bit of barbecue sauce. Not very much. This is the Smoke on Wheels Kansas City bootleg. It's got some bourbon in it. It's got some Dr. Pepper in it. Some really interesting flavors. So it's not your typical barbecue sauce, which makes sense because you wouldn't typically see me put barbecue sauce on top of a steak, but we're kind of treating this almost like it's more of a barbecue big meat as far as the flavor profile goes rather than a steak. Just enough to kind of melt into the surface there. And with all that residual heat, it should tack up nicely. Now this green onion, we'll just kind of chop these up to sprinkle over the top. That'll give us a nice onion pop, but a little bit of char on there as well. Softened up to mellow out the green onion flavor. All right, so remember I said in order to slice this against the grain, we're gonna have to divide it up into a few pieces, rotate 90 degrees, and then get in there and cut fairly thin slices for the best possible mouthfeel. You want to take a look at the center. Nice and juicy, tons of juice in there. So one of these 1 pounders, 1 pound skirt steaks could easily feed 3 people. Especially, gonna have that topped with some of your grilled peaches. Those peaches you could even glaze with a little bit of barbecue sauce as well if you wanted to. Now I'm always telling you guys, don't waste this juice that's left behind by the steak because there's so much flavor in there. What we're gonna do today is actually mix a little bit more of that barbecue sauce in to make a really thin glaze, and this we can paint over the peaches. Just a sprinkle of the green onions over the top of that. There we go. Looks good enough to eat. All right, I'm gonna get in here and have a taste. Ooh. That's really nice. The sweetness of the peach is the first thing to hit. but great chili flavor in the steak. Just a little bit of saltiness. I'm glad we didn't go overboard with the seasoning there. Those are really cool flavors, and the way they play together works really well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out allthingsbbq.com for all of the products featured in today's video. If you enjoy the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to allthingsbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.